Welcome to this foraging workshop. We're here in the beautiful Ashford demesne and we're meeting the local chef at the Lodge at Ashford, Jonathan Keane. Jonathan, how are you?
Hi Benjamin, how are you?
Good. So, Jonathan, we'd like to really explore the relationship between habitats, geology, and the type of plants that we can use for food, and that's where foraging really comes through. So, just in terms of context here, we are situated at the southern edge of the Cong Isthmus. We have the Cong village to the north. We have the Lake Corrib just there beside us. We have Carboniferous limestone mainly in the village in Cong, and under us there we have Silurian sandstone. So a bit of a mix like that. And just wondering, in terms of the range of habitats that we have between the lake, the grassland, and semi-native trees, would you say it's good foraging country here?
That's wonderful, yeah. It's the connection really with all the water and the woodlands. We have a little bit of everything. So like even between here now, if I just walk that short walk down to the lake there, I'm going to find about 10 plants that I can cook with. And then as we move into the woodlands, it's endless really, you know. We'd be stopping every 2 minutes or less every few seconds really, particularly this time of year because all the flowers are coming and everything. There's lots of colour and it's a great time to be out foraging really.
That's fantastic. So is foraging something you fell into because of your career, or is that something you did, you were brought up with?
Well, I suppose we all kind of forage. I'm from Connemara, so every year we would have picked all the blackberries and stuff, and we made our own jams and stuff like that, you know. We also used to, you know, the likes of the wood sorrel. Myself and my brothers used to eat the wood sorrel on the banks. You know, we didn't know at the time it was called wood sorrel. We thought it was shamrock, but we were eating, but we used to love the taste of it. So there'd be a big connection with like my childhood and a lot of my cooking, you know, and again, I've just followed that on more so when I became a chef. I learned more about foraging and how I could tie the two together really, you know.
I can see polytunnels behind you there. Is that something that you brought in to kind of complement already the foraging that you have growing everything, or is it something that was set up in the hotel?
No, very much so, yeah. It's I put the first one in there in 2015 and we've put one in every couple of years since, you know. We really want to grow as much as we can on the estate. In the summer now we'd get an awful lot of produce out of those tunnels and we're going to grow it, and anything that we can't grow here we'll always buy it off as local a producer. We don't really like food miles here. As local as possible, you know, it's better for the environment, and also we try and keep the money in the community where possible, you know.
That's fantastic. I want to ask you just a final question. Is it the woodlands here? They're a mix of native trees and imported trees. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we have our native trees, and also we have like the Guinness family used to own the estate a long time ago, and they would have brought in a lot of non-native trees for decorative purposes, but also they brought in a lot of stuff like laurel for game cover because there was lots of shooting going on the estate back then, you know. But we find it's very interesting that under the native trees there's a lot of biodiversity, and all the plants that I'm interested in really, which is the edible plants, it's always better under the native trees, you know, and they just seem to grow better, you know.
Excellent. Let's go foraging.
So we're going to just take a walk down here towards the lake.
Yeah.
And we're going to find a few bits and pieces. So I'm going to explain how I cook with some of the wild plants. There's spruce there that I cook duck on. There's going to be plantain. We'll see what else we find, you know.
Excellent.
And then later we'll take you into the woods and we'll find another few bits. Right, Ben, so the first thing we have here is, see our lovely spruce trees?
Yeah.
So these leaves, we cook with these. So we have a dish on the menu in the restaurant, which is a duck dish, and it's in an orange marinade. And we cook it really slow in a water bath in the orange marinade to make it tender. And when it comes out, we just crisp up the skin, and then we sit it on a bed of this, and we roast it in the oven. And the waiter brings the duck out to the table, sitting on a pan of the spruce, so it's smouldering away. And it gives, the smoke will be just kind of filtering through the air of the restaurant. So it's a bit of theatre in the dish as well, you know?
Yeah, and the flavour, excellent. And how old are those trees? Do you know roughly?
No.
They've been there for. Are they an ancient kind of things that would be in the estate anyway?
No, well these trees, I don't think they're native.
No.
So the Guinness has put in loads and loads of non-native trees, you know, back in the day, and you'll find them as we go along.
Yeah.
You know, so it's going to be one of the major challenges, I think, to repopulate the place with native trees, you know. We're going to have our own honey for the breakfast for our guests, for the 2 hotels.
So this is another aspect of foraging, really, because it's we're talking about the bees doing the work for you, isn't it? What kind of flowers are they after, or what kind of plants?
Yeah, so this is going to be called ivy honey.
Ivy.
Yeah, you can have thyme honey, heather honey, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
It's going to be a mix, really, of everything, you know. The great thing about having our own bees is it really gives us a flavour of the estate, you know, because it is coming from the land and from the plants and from the soil, you know. And it's going to be wonderful for our guests to wake up every morning and be able to dig straight into the honeycomb, you know, and really taste the flavour of the estate, you know. And there's nothing better for you than wild honey, you know, wild raw honey, untreated, in its purest form. It's delicious, you know. Coming down towards the lake now. The next thing I'm going to show you here is the plantain. So that's just coming into season now, really. This makes a lovely snack. So we used to play a game when we were kids called deadheading. So where we'd pick the whole thing, myself and my brothers, and you'd have to hit each other and try and knock the head off the other person's thing. But this black part here, we pickle this for 6 weeks, just in a light enough pickle. My version of salt and vinegar crisps. So I put these in a pickle for 6 weeks, and I'd leave them on the bar, and I'd serve. The broad beans are in season now as well, or the favas. So everybody uses the broad beans but throws away the husk. So what I do with the husk of the bean is I cut it up, toss it in smoked paprika and deep fry it. So, and I serve like a jar of these pickled and a jar of the broad beans. So this is your vinegar taste and the broad beans are your salty taste. So it's my version of salt and vinegar crisps.
Now, when you say a light pickle, what do you mean in terms of is just a type of vinegar?
Yeah, just white wine vinegar. You know, a little bit of water, a little bit of sugar, just not too strong in the vinegar, just so you can taste the plantain.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's a really, really nice snack because it's sharp. Then you get the salty broad bean, and then you take a big gulp of beer. Happy out.
Beautiful. In terms of foraging, you can't take the whole plant. So we're okay here with the plantain. There's a few of them, but in general, you have to kind of be respectful of the plant itself. Of that.
Yeah, so the rule of thumb that I use is never take more than 30% of any plant. And depending on what it is, you know, like in April there's one patch on the estate of morels, you know, that we find. And obviously we're waiting all year for these lovely morels, but when we find them, we don't completely take the whole thing, you know. And it's like anything, you know, you have to be respectful and give it a chance to come back next year, you know.
That's it, yeah.
So it's much like sustainability in the sea or whatever. You know, if you overfish, you're going to have a problem in the future. So it's the exact same with plants, you know. So here we have our lime kiln.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
It tells so much about the history of the place, you know, and the geology, which is the link of it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you see all the beautiful limestone that you have facing on the walls, and just the fact that it was used specifically for agriculture.
Yeah. So there's loads of these around these areas, you know, and that's where they used to make the lime, you know, in little structures like that, you know. I'd really love to use that again as part of our kind of sustainability, is to put a door on it and smoke our own fish in there or something, you know. It would really be in connection with the land, you know.
Yeah, it's being so close to the lake. It really makes sense. But it's a fantastic area, because these type of features are generally seen in lime depraved area, where, you know, they have to bring in the limestone and they bring that to fertilize the land. But when you're already on limestone, then you're fantastic.
Yeah.
But right here you're not, and that's the funny thing. Limestone is just a few miles
edge,
but right here you're on sandstone.
Okay, so this guy here, you'll recognize it because there's absolutely millions and millions of them around the place. This is the gorse flower, also known as furze bush, or also known as wind bush. So it has a few names, you know. And when the flower is out, which is almost always, but sometimes the seasons will surprise you, but it should be out nearly all the time. So this has a light coconut flavour. In the restaurant, we don't really like importing stuff, so it's difficult to get tropical flavours. So we use this, we dehydrate this, and it gives us our coconut flavour. So if we want to make, a tropical fruit panna cotta or something, we'll use this. We'll use pineapple sage. We'll use lemon verbena. So obviously, with our climate, we can't grow the pineapples or the coconuts, but we can source the flavour, So it's kind of giving us indigenous tropical flavours, which is good. So this is horsetail. So this really, what you do with this is you make tea with it.
Infused as what kind of flavour are we talking about there?
It's got kind of like it'll be like an alpine, piney kind of grassy taste.
Gentian.
Yeah. It's like a herbal tea, really, You see the stalk there. The stalk is full of nutrients, so it's very, very good for you,
And it grows particularly close to water.
Yeah. I think it's it's not a sea vegetable, but it's very similar, It likes the water,
So not boiling them, isn't it? You're losing something if you're...
Yeah, so anytime you boil it, the nutrients are gone and you're going to make the tea real bitter and astringent,
So for people at home, they would just use boil the kettle, but then wait a few minutes.
Yeah, like a herbal tea bag.
Yeah.
Just let it simmer down and let it settle down a bit, and then just pour it over and leave it infuse for a few minutes, The flavour will come out naturally. Whereas if you boil it hard, the nutrients are just boiling away, and as well as that, it'll give it that bitter kind of astringent taste,
Now, Jonathan, isn't that one of the flowering symbol of spring?
Yeah, so there's loads of, you see the colour, you see it all over the estate and everywhere now. When you see this, the weather should be turning, in theory anyways. Yeah, so this is it's a hawthorn flower, beautiful in salads, lovely sweet flavour. September, October, these will be gone and the berry will come. And we use the berry with venison. So I believe that a lot of the plants and all the other meats and all foods come into season at the same time, because it's nature's way of working in harmony, So once the berries are here, we'll harvest the berries. The berries have a slight cinnamon flavour and they're full of pectin. So we'll make a hawthorn jelly, but the pectin sets it itself. So all we do is boil it up, add a little bit of honey, a little bit of water, and we'll just pass it through a sieve, and it'll be like a red juice. And you just leave it in the fridge for a few hours, and it'll set with its natural pectins. Wow. And we serve it with the venison then. The wild is full of stuff that you can use in salads. It's easy to make a garden salad. So here's a lovely salad ingredient. So this is red clover.
Yeah. Certainly recognise that one.
Yeah. And again, you just pick it and you just put the little petals. They're nice and sweet, but they also add lovely colour to your salad, And there's so many things that you could just make a salad. You could come out into the wild and just bring a little bowl with you, make your salad, Very simple.
That's very good. I know the bees are wild bees, the bumblebees and solitary bees are all into that flower as well.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of sugar. They even, as a kid, I remember picking them and sucking the bottom of it.
Yeah, great pollinators, and you see the hawthorn flowers there. All this time of year, then you see the bees buzzing around, and it's like the wildflowers. They love the wildflowers, So I'd always love, if I'm in a garden, I'd prefer to see wildflower meadows around the place rather than anything too kind of
catered for.
Yeah. So here's our woodruff bin.
All right.
It looks a little bit like goosegrass, the cleaver, but the way you can tell the difference is the cleaver is all sticky. But this is my favourite wild plant. And basically what you do with it is you dry it and you flavour creams and panna cottas and ice creams. It's almost like toasted almonds. So,
it's very nutty.
Mm-hmm. So the first time I tasted this, it reminded me straight away of an almond rice pudding I had in a very good Indian restaurant in London. So straight away I got the connection, and I picked loads of it that day and started making desserts with it.
Yeah, so how many leaves do we have on the top there? It's a nice...
So it's 7 leaves around, yeah? and it's very, very strong. So this piece of woodruff here, once it's dried, will flavour about 2 desserts. So the next thing we're going to see hidden under the ferns here is wood sorrel. So wood sorrel would be the oxalis family, and it's probably the most common plant I use in the kitchen. It has a real citrusy, almost like an apple flavour. I'd use this a lot in my cookery. My pre-dessert is like a wood sorrel granita, which is basically water, sugar and this, and then we just freeze it and we serve it. It's almost like a sherbet. The flavour will burst in your mouth like when it's in an ice, you know. A lot of people say it tastes like lemon, but I get apple off it, you know.
A bit of both, yeah. It's a bit citrusy, I agree. And what is it growing on now? Some kind of a...
See here, it's just growing on an old tree stump here.
An old tree stump.
Yeah. But there's loads of it over there on the ground as well, you know. It's very common. In the summer then there'll be a lovely white flower on that.
And you can pick it any time of the year?
Yeah, it'll be here all year, but it's at its best now, and it'll get a bit duller in colour as the winter comes. So it's at its best now. You know, I use it in desserts, but I also use it, like, I put a layer of it over my steak tartare, you know. You know, you can use it in lots of different things. I serve it on foie gras, you know, there's all sorts of stuff I use it with.
It reminds me of a piece of early, like, Irish literature, which is the poem of Mad Sweeney, which is a king driven mad, and he lived in the woods for a long time. And that's one of the plans that he mentions in his poem about, you know, keeping him alive and high spirits, good morals, you know, just keeping the flavours. What's interesting is that obviously wood sorrel, flowers, so it's flowering plant. These came quite late in terms of evolution on Earth. Ferns, on the other hand, were there long before. The flowering plants are during the time of the Cretaceous, really, and they evolved with the insects and the pollinators around that time. So at the end of the time of the dinosaurs, about 60, 70 million years ago. But these came a lot older, 300 million years ago. And you actually had forests, you had firs that were as tall as those trees in here. And we have fossils of barks of these types of trees in our rock record from the time of the Carboniferous, which is the time period of the limestone that is underneath us here in Ashford. So the ferns were the forest? They were ferns that were the forest, because they were the first plants that really colonised land that efficiently. And right, Ben, here is a patch of wild garlic. So as you can see now, it's all flowered, so it's coming towards the end. It's only got about 2 months of life, really, you know. Okay. That's the leaf of the wild garlic. So we use that to make pestos and stuff. So as this wild garlic is coming towards the end of the season now, the leaves are quite tough. And so they're much better early, and they're lovely and tender, you know. But in the lodge we use wild garlic 3 ways. So you start off with the young leaves. We could pan fry it and just serve it, you know, with hogget or something like that. We also make oils, pestos. Then you have the flower. So the flower comes next. So we put the flower in through salads and stuff. But this is my favourite part then. So when the flower falls off, you're left with this. So see these little buds, and basically what I call that is the caviar of the white garlic, or the caviar of the wild garlic, rather. So those little buds there, so I make something called wild garlic capers with them. So I brine them for 2 weeks in salt, take them out, put them into a pickle for anything from 3 to 6 months. And they make the most beautiful, it's really strong, but it's a most beautiful flavour. So like we flavour a risotto with that. So you could that would be enough to put into 1 portion of risotto there for a strong garlicky flavour, you know. The danger that I've been told about wild garlic is that sometimes it looks a lot like lily of the valley. Is that right?
Yeah. You have to be careful to make sure you know what you're doing, yeah.
And the main difference is the smell, is that correct?
Yeah, so the smell is going to be very strong, yeah? So you're going to get that garlicky smell. But the other thing, you know, is that it always grows in huge patches, you know, so you're going to recognise it. And once the flower comes, it's easy. And they're my favourite, you know. So that bit, like if I ate that now, the taste would be so strong, you know. So you really need to brine it and then pickle it, you know, because it'll be way too harsh on your palate now. But it's a wonderful flavour to have in the kitchen, you know.
So we worked up quite a bit of an appetite now after all that walking and foraging. What are we going to do today?
So I'm just going to make a quick easy recipe. So we found the Woodruff, sweet Woodruff. So what I'm going to do is a Woodruff creme brulee. So nice and simple, easy to make at home. So the first thing, it's just a couple of ingredients. So cream. On the cream goes. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just infusing the cream with the Woodruff. So very similar to how you'd use a vanilla pod or something, you know. In it goes. And we're just going to bring that to the boil and let it infuse for a few minutes. Egg yolks. So I'm making 4 brulees.
How many egg yolks do you have?
No, 4 egg yolks.
Yeah.
So we get our eggs off a good local supplier just back in Claremorris there. 100 grams of sugar. Caster sugar. And all you have to do, it's a very, very simple dessert. You whisk this up. Really what a brulee is, it's just a baked custard, you know.
But you can't do that because you have this fresh French cycle to it.
Yeah, well, you'll see that when it's finished. We finish it off with the sugar. So you just want to whisk that until it slightly starts to turn pale, you know. And you see how fast that's come to the boil there now. So we just remove that from the heat now and let that infuse. You'd want to let that infuse for about 10 minutes. Okay, and then we'll come back to you. Right, so our cream has infused now with the Woodruff and our eggs and our sugar is beaten together. So all you have to do now is pour the cream. We're just straining off the Woodruff. Directly onto the eggs and sugar. So that Woodruff has a real strong nutty kind of flavour, you know. So you can smell it. So that leaves you now with a flavoured custard, is really what that is. I'm just going to transfer it back into the jug to make it easy to pour. And as you can see, that's a nice yellow colour. Now for the brulees. I'm using copper pots. You can just use ramekins or any little bowl that you have at home. Some people cook these in a bain-marie, which is basically a tray of water, but it all depends on the temperature. I'm going to put these directly into the oven at 120 degrees for about 20 minutes and they'll set. Okay, so now the brulee goes into the oven, 120 for 20 minutes. So on it goes, see you in 20. So there you have it. That's our sweet Woodruff creme brulee.
We gonna go?
Have a try.
Yeah, you really get those nutty flavours, yeah. Fantastic. Gurmagwiv, that's it everybody. We've had a lovely walk in this beautiful estate and explored and found so many native plants that can really bring up the taste of the land into your cuisine and your cooking. So I certainly learned a lot. I hope you enjoyed it. That's it from us. Bye-bye.